Hey guys, what's up? I'm back at it again with another video. I've been reflecting a lot the past few months because, as some of you guys know, my grandma passed away. If you don't know, she passed away, and I've kind of been like reflecting a lot. If you haven't gotten my book, it's going to be linked below. But today I'm going to be talking about neurodivergence and relationships. Today we're going to be talking about platonic relationships. I think one of the best ways to talk about something, like for me, is to kind of have a story time example for you guys. Now, in my story times, I will not be revealing the like identity of anybody. And some of my story times are actually multiple people meshed together. But for, purposes of explaining, I'm just going to, be talking about one of my friends in the past that I had and kind of the difficulties surrounding neurodivergence and how understanding it can kind of help you move forward in your relationships, both platonic and romantic. So, without further ado, let's get into this video.
Right. My AI just changed. It just buzzed the front gate. Thank God you came.
In my early 20s, I was in school. I was working through a lot of things. I had my high school friendships. Some of them I still have, some of them we kind of outgrew each other, and that happens sometimes when you learn about who you are. It was nothing ill, but this is just one explanation of how I discovered how we can better approach friendships, relationships, all of that. So I see a lot of back and forth and a lot of terms being used, especially in this day and age where it's like, we've discovered what neurodivergence is, narcissism, gaslighting, all of these like buzzwords that we're using. I also see, in terms of friendships, people describing themselves as low maintenance or high maintenance friends. And low maintenance friends are like, this shit is too much for, high maintenance friends. Like, they can't deal with the high maintenance friend. High maintenance friends are like, low maintenance people, that's crazy. Like, that's really, you just don't care. And what I've determined is that perhaps, the same way that we would approach a romantic relationship, or should anyway, is determined upon compatibility. Like, I don't see enough people saying that. If you know, if you deem someone high maintenance, you can use that term, I think, for describing like what kind of friend you are, but I don't think it should be used in a way that is negative, and vice versa. Because we are just different people and we require different things, and some friends will mesh with and some friends we just won't, and that's okay. I had to learn that outgrowing a friend it doesn't mean that anything negative happened or that either one of you were wrong. Especially if you know your friend is a good person and you're a good person and you've tried. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Now, I did all of that blabbing. Let's get into the story time. Back when I was, in my early 20s, I was going through it. I was going through a lot of stuff. Like, my grandma had always been sick at that point. So I was going through that. I was going through type 1 diabetes. I was going through learning myself, learning the kind of relationships and, things that I require for a healthy one. Knee deep in it. When I'm telling you, struggling. Your girl was struggling. But I had a friend that we were friends like from, I think, the beginning of middle school, and we stayed friends until this kind of went down, and nothing negative happened. It just, we learned that we weren't compatible. This friend I loved dearly, like loved her so much, but I would describe her as an extrovert. I would describe myself as not that. So it's kind of like if I knew a person, like I could emote. Like I could fully emote, back then. But I learned sometime in the future that really I can really only truly be um myself, or been 100% myself around my mom and my sister, and a few other select individuals, just because of some things that I'll get into later on in this video. But it kind of, she was kind of like the talkative friend. She kept the group together. She kept our friendship going, because at some point I had switched schools, and she really was a great friend, and just always kind of kept our relationship together. Now, throughout this friendship, I kind of have a way that I used to approach friendships, which I've tried to correct. I kind of let people be who they needed to be, you know. I would determine what my friends needed, and I just let them be that towards me. I would be less of myself so that they could be their true selves, because that's kind of what I cared about. So at times people would determine that I was passive, or like, I don't know, some in some respects try to like think that they were getting one over on me. Not in a bad way, but it's just like I've always been a listener and kind of more of a laid back person. Like, you can do what you need to do. I'll be your friend. I love you. I can tell, like, if you can't be different. I wouldn't try to make you different. So some of the things that she would say to me, I determined that it was just a part of her personality, and I was just going to let her be that, until it came to a head. And I remember this particular situation in which I, at some certain point, there were things that I was just not able to do. I was always kind of referred to as a flake. So I would set meetings up, and this wasn't just with her, but just kind of my life, except for school. I could keep school together because it was like a necessity, and it was not an option. My parents, myself, my anxiety, it just wasn't an option in that way, to where I felt like it was something that I could, like, oh, I'm not going to school today. You know what I'm saying? But I would set up things like, we would set up appointments or dates to meet, and then I would get to the day, and I would just be so exhausted that I would say, I'm not going to be able to make it. And I would do this, like, sometimes I made it, sometimes I answered the phone. I always answered, but it could take me like 2 days to answer or so. And this, when we were in our early 20s, it became an issue, because I was trying my hardest, but it wasn't enough for her. And I couldn't do more than I was doing, but I didn't know how to get that across. And it wasn't her fault. And I used to blame myself a lot. Like, I blame myself for everything that has happened to me, because there's all of these accountability police out there, and I also have, like, I would just talk about myself like shit, more than any other person ever could. But when I look back, I was struggling, and I didn't know how to explain why, you know, I wanted to show her, give her the love that she needed, and I just couldn't. I couldn't be the friend that, like, stayed on the phone for an hour to 3 hours. I couldn't be the friend that would show up, to everything. I could be the friend that you call if you are like, if you call me in the middle of the night, I don't give a fuck. Like, middle of the night, and you're like, bitch, I need to go to the hospital. I need help. I'm stranded. I'm out. Like, I'm riding for you. I'm right. Like, I always thinking about my friends. Always, like, I love my friends very deeply. Um, but it wasn't shown because to her, it wasn't enough. And I couldn't reach it. So at some point, um, we had a discussion about this, and I kind of had been holding things in for so long just because I didn't know how not to. Like, I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I didn't want the confrontation. Cuz I feel like when I tell my friends like, "Hey, this kind of, this is not okay." It hurts me more that they're hurt. So it's just like it was too much for me to go through cuz I knew she didn't mean to be. I knew she just didn't have evil intent. So it's like some of the things that she would say, or some of the my control that was kind of taken away from me. It was not something that she was doing on purpose. So that was my reasoning for not, explaining what kind of relationship I required, or how I felt in that moment. I kind of was able to just push through until I started discovering myself. Now, my neurodivergence, I kind of started discovering when I was 23, 24 or so. Um, and so I was diagnosed with ADHD, figured that out, but I was in and out of depression. And I think I've been in and out of depression my entire life. I just was like moving from one state of depression to figuring out how to exist in this society where I kind of don't fit in with anyone, and then kind of just moving along, just trying to survive. And I was always overstimulated, but I didn't know what overstimulation was. I didn't know what these things were, to explain to her that I just like I will have the best intent possible to make it to something and can't, unless it's like dire. Like if it was something like very important, I would, but that it's like the high level of importance that would make me make it to something like that. Otherwise I might make it or I might cancel. So, at this point I felt really bad. I was trying to do as much as I could to show her, and I just couldn't. I even went into explaining like, okay, this is like kind of what I determined in my head. I'm kind of depressed. I went through this breakup, but separate from the breakup, I've also always kind of been depressed, always kind of been anxious, always like kind of been like not a crowd person. But so it's like it was beyond me to make it for her. And it tore me down. I was thinking about it at night. And I think to her, it kind of seemed like I could have done more, and I just wasn't. And so when I would tell her things, she would say, "Okay, I'm so glad that you felt like it was safe to confide in me in that way." And I kind of thought at that point we were making some leeway. But I think a lot of times that when you don't have depression, or you may have anxiety but you're not clinically diagnosed, and someone with anxiety and depression comes to you and tells you something, then it might seem like, okay, well, we've talked about it, it's going to get better, it's going to be fine, it's going to. But really what I was telling her was that it's this is a part of who I've been, and it's something that I suffer from. So I think, and that, like, when I had confided in her that day and it didn't get better, that's when the disconnect kind of worsened. We ended up having a conversation and the friendship kind of dissolved. Um, but I was thinking about this, and I use this for my story time because, like, a low maintenance friend, like, they use low maintenance for people who, like, we're adults. We don't have to call each other every day. We don't have to do all of that. We're still friends. We're going to be friends. And me and my best friend are like that. And I I get that cuz I am that person. But there's another side to it that I don't think is negative for someone to quote unquote be high maintenance, like, in terms of friendship. Someone would view this particular friend that I'm talking about as high maintenance. She liked talking on the phone like for hours. She liked, meetings. She liked planning events. She liked, you know, if I didn't answer the phone, it would bother her, and it just it wasn't like that for me because I'm just different, you know. Um but I kind of want us to get away from like this low maintenance, high maintenance thing and just kind of seek who we are compatible with. Because if you're a low maintenance friend and you're going to someone who's high maintenance, or you're high maintenance and you're having this, like, not to say that you can't get through it, but that's not a good recipe for success. It's just not going to be, because you're not going to work. You can love a person all you want, but if you can't be less and you can't be more, then it's going to be some type of quarrel or something eventually. So I think that, rather than just trying to demonize everyone, saying, oh, they want too much, or, oh, she is, like, she just doesn't care, that's why she's not doing it, like, because if you wanted to, you would. um I just think that's not appropriate because it doesn't make sense. um I think we should approach it the same way we would approach anything else. If you kind of focus more on what your qualities are in terms of when you meet friends as well, which I think is more spoken about in terms of romantic relationships, like, you know, then we would have an easier time, just a more peaceful life where we're not struggling, because you shouldn't have to try to be less and you shouldn't have to try to be more. It should kind of just, it should, you get what I'm saying? It should just, instead of, like, doing all of the difficult stuff and getting hurt and things like that. um because I will say, from my point of view, like, through this friendship, I could kind of hear the things that were being said about me, even from her and from her perspective, and I couldn't explain. I This is not like, when you're in a romantic relationship and you have that guy that you're dating and he doesn't show up. You know what I'm saying? And he actually doesn't care about you and doesn't love you, and just doesn't show up. You know what I'm saying? It was different. Like, I couldn't meet the expectation because I couldn't do it for me. So it was no way that I could do it for her. And at that point, it became very stressful on my spirit, along with other things that I was dealing with. And I'm sure it became stressful to her. So, like, I hope that made sense, you guys. I feel like I be all over the place sometimes, but I'm just trying to, like, my main message is, being neurodivergent and friendships can be difficult, but we don't necessarily need to demonize people who are quote unquote high maintenance. And, from my perspective, I'm speaking as a low maintenance friend, but it goes both ways. I think we should just seek compatibility. Otherwise, You know what I'm saying? Like, no one wants to deal with that type of thing. And it can take you some time to figure out who you are and what you like and who you're compatible with. But I think the further or the quicker that we can determine that and fully like analyze, move forward appropriately, then we can make better decisions as to who to connect with and who to give our time to and who to um you know seek friendship or relationship with. It just makes sense. I just can't. I don't see people saying that for some reason. I'm just like, oh god, you guys are beating each other up. um you're just like talking about each other and shit, so it was bothering me. But anyway, you guys, I hope you like this video and this little story time. I don't even know if I'm looking at the right, because I haven't filmed a YouTube video in a while, to be honest. I don't even know if I'm looking at the camera right. But if I'm looking over here, just know that I meant to look over there. And don't, you know what I mean? Don't come too hard on me. But anyway, you guys know what it is. It's XOXO.